Bionational Internal Memorandum regarding Operation Outreach. Progress Report. Government Vessel Benedict lifted as scheduled. Standard ship crew plus Squads 1 through 4. Fox Platoon, Company Able, 1st XT Division, 2nd Colonial Marines. Colonel H.S. Stevens commanding. See attached. Personnel Appendix A. Bionational ship KO-14 launched in pursuit. Echo Lock, full robotics and expendable EXP series android crew under the command of Executive Assistant Security P. Massey. Joel, you know the general layout of this, but I'll recap some of the particulars you might have missed while you were on vacation. The alien life form the Gov guys want is the Big Nasty, and naturally they'd like to score it for their own weapons program. Needless to say, this would compromise our own profit structure were it to happen. With the recent Supreme Court decision on patentable life forms vis-a-vis created versus discovered, we might spend 10 years in the fucking legal system trying to unsnarl this mess. So Uplevels decided that we should tail the feds to the Homeworld, the location of which is so damn secret we couldn't pry it out of anybody for blackmail or money, and get as much info as we could. And of course, we don't want the feds to get their own specimen. This guy, Massey, has his orders, and he's the best there is. He will do whatever it takes to stop them. You probably have heard that research got its hands on a guy salvaged from a cargo express, one of ours, fortunately, with one of the Big Nasty embryos wrapped around his face. The ship was cold, systems dead, but somehow this thing had kept him in stasis, almost as if he'd been in a sleep tank. Hell, that alone is worth a fortune if we can figure out how the hell it did it. Anyway, both the crewman and the bug on his face were still alive, so they've been brought to the Houston labs for analysis. We're still way ahead of the feds on this, and already geared up for full-scale testing. Start figuring out ways to spend your bonus, Joel. We're all gonna get rich off this one. That's it on the main deal. There's some other stuff in this memo the Psycho Boys are concerned about, so I'll let you get to it. See you lunch Tuesday. Ben. The crew of the Benedict had awoken from hypersleep, soon approaching their destination. There was, of course, a passenger on board not originally accounted for. The surprise took a while to filter through to Stevens. Hicks wondered if the man would have noticed at all had not the head count come out one too many. The squads picked it up right away. They all knew each other, so Newt stood out for them. But Stevens was a chair jockey. He had a list of his troops somewhere, and couldn't yet identify them by names or faces. Stevens inquired about the +1 on his roster. Hicks explained that he was responsible for bringing the extra person, claiming her to be a civilian expert on the aliens. Hardly a satisfying answer for Stevens. "I am going to throw you in the brig and scramble the code," Stevens said, still looking for who didn't belong. "Sir, you could do that, but perhaps Gen Staff might be interested in knowing why the CO didn't discover the stowaway before liftoff, given that a final inspection is part of the CO's duties. Sir." Hicks knew this was Stevens' first field command, and that he did not want anything to mar it, make him look bad. Now was the time for his pitch. Stevens was pissed, no doubt about it, but he had to be working the angles, trying to see how this was going to look once he got home. Since Hicks wouldn't bet a bent Democrat that he was going to get home, that didn't matter much to him. But Stevens wouldn't be thinking like that. "Sir, if I could show you that you were responsible for taking on a civilian expert, then there wouldn't be any problem. You buried a CMA code in your log, didn't you?" Hicks hadn't been able to check Stevens' CO log. The access commands for that were beyond his abilities as a computer break-in artist, but he was fairly certain that the Colonel had installed the CMA, cover my ass, code, so that it was dated near the start of the mission. This was standard of practice among nervous officers, a simple piece of insurance that could sit there unused unless something wonky came up. It was easy enough. Log entries were all automatically timed and dated. A CMA code was some innocuous piece of input, usually a phrase that was related to whatever data were going in, but stilted in such a way that it didn't quite fit. If a situation arose that was unforeseen, the officer could use the code to cover himself by entering new data, and then referring back to the phrase as if it had been put there in anticipation of such happenings. Any lengthy phrase could be made to say almost anything a bright computer wanted later, and the officer could swear he or she had known about it in advance and covered it, but in code, so as to keep things secret from prying eyes. "Why should I help you?" Stevens asked. "Because, sir, you'd be helping yourself. I'll put the rumor out that our discussion here is part of a clever subterfuge you worked up for reasons of your own having to do with some kind of secret military business about which they don't want to know. When you get back to Earth, you're covered, and I'll go quietly wherever you want me to go." Stevens considered it. He didn't like it. Hicks could see that, but he was thinking about his future, and that was the most important thing on his agenda. "All right," he said. "Trot him out and let me see him." "See her," Hicks said. "Where did you get her?" "I broke her out of a mental hospital, sir." The matter was more or less settled. Newt was now part of the team despite Stevens' reservations and the hindrances that may have been presented regarding plans of his own. But the arrival to the alien homeworld coordinates was soon approaching, and there was little use in losing focus on the mission at hand at this juncture. Newt fit in about as well as could be expected. There were suspicions and rumors and confusion about her presence. Hicks kept a close eye on her, even as it became apparent that Newt slowly began developing a relationship with one of Hicks's grunts, Private Bueller. As the mission continued, Newt reflected on the events so far. "I was standing at one of the viewports, staring into space. The light from the stars stretched around the ship like glowing white neon. I was trying to remember my parents. All I could remember was the blood. In the midst of this, what did Bueller see in me? No one had ever shown interest in me before. At first it didn't make any sense. Then I realized he was like me. He knew how it felt to be alone. Hicks gave me a schedule of token administrative duties to keep me occupied during this voyage. Hatred of the aliens burned inside him like an open flame. It was all that sustained him. He'd lost all sense of compassion. I shared his hatred of the aliens, but suddenly our bitter quest seemed empty, almost ugly. Bueller and I found an unused storage unit behind the engine compartment and met as often as we could. It was all so new to me. Maybe Hicks had been hating so long, he'd forgotten what it was like to care about someone. Maybe I had been locked away for so long I'd never had the chance to try. We stood at the viewport, staring into space. The aliens destroyed my life once. I couldn't stop them then, but I could stop it from happening again. As the ship approached the aliens' homeworld, I was overwhelmed by a hideous premonition of death. Bueller and I spent every spare moment together. I knew he shared my apprehensions. There was an air of desperation to our encounters, as if we didn't dare waste an instant. We made love that final day, surrounded by the bleak gray metal of the ship's hull. I remember thinking how frail we were next to our machines, and for the first time since Acheron, I cried. In his quarters on the chase ship, Massey sat seasoned, concentrated on his breathing. He had never learned to meditate as the masters did, but he could use it to calm his system. Sure, he exercised his body, practiced fighting techniques, drilled over and over again with weaponry, but these things brought him no joy. They were there to keep him crisp, to maintain his cutting edge, nothing more. Being in top shape was part of the business, necessary, and he trained himself as if he were a prized show animal. Proper diet, enough rest, technical mastery is required, no more, no less. He was the equal of any serious athlete, and against the few who might be in better physical shape or with faster reflexes, he augmented himself with drugs or figured out ways to cheat. If you wanted a man dead, it was better to shoot him in the back from long range than to stand facing him like some Hollywood hero. That was a fool's game, and since the last man standing was the victor, it was better to slant things your way when possible. Soon, another test would come. He must be ready for it. So he sat, but it was not mindless meditation, but mindful scheming that filled him. In a contest like this, there could be no second-place winner. To be second was to be last, and to be last here was to be dead. Private Jones was taking her turn at the proximity sensor board. 10 minutes into her tour, a bogey began blipping. She wasn't deep in this kind of work, but since the computer did most of it, all she had to do was ask. She alerted Colonel Stevens. Jones said, "Sir, the PS says there's a vessel out there, only 100 clicks back, and closing. The thing must have blown a circuit or something, right?" "Could be an echo. That happens," Stevens said. "Run a diagnostic." "Affirmative, sir. Jones touched a button. The image gridded, words sprayed across it, and the result came up almost immediately. Diagnostic check complete, all systems functional. Damn, Jones said. Excuse me, sir, there is a ship out there. I'll sound general alert. She searched for the red button cover, started to flip it up so she could reach the alarm control. No, Stevens said. Sir, if that's a ship, we have to assume it's hostile to our mission. That's SOP. By now, Jones had turned enough to see that Stevens had drawn his sidearm, an issue soft slug pistol. He shot her, through the left eye. Gore splattered on his coverall as Jones's head snapped back and smashed into the sensor board. Sorry, Stevens said, reholstering his weapon. The colonel waved his hands over the comm unit. Stevens here, he said. Everything is set. Prepare for docking. Copy that, came Massey's voice from the comm. We are on the way. While General Alert hadn't been alarmed, the squad certainly felt the KO-14's docking. They went to arm themselves, only to find the loading mechanisms of their rifles had been pulled, rendered useless. They were sensing a setup. Colonel Stevens spoke on the intercom, ordering all Marines to report to the loading bay immediately. They were met with Massey's ambush. The hatch slid up and assault-suited men sprinted through the opening, splitting into two groups, one heading fore, the other aft. Two of them brought their hardware to bear on Hicks. These were automatic shotguns that fired frangible epoxy-bearing lead pellets. They didn't have much penetration, but against an unarmed human target, they were deadly enough. They didn't call them splatterguns for nothing. Hicks raised his hands. The last man sauntered into the ship proper, an antique 10mm recoilless Smith DA-only pistol in one hand. He waved the gun at Hicks. Hello, Marine. New in town? Right on schedule, Massey, Stevens said. Hicks felt his guts twist. Stevens was a traitor. He didn't know who this Massey was, or who he represented. One of the war cartels, maybe, some corporation. But Stevens had sold them out. Newt had been left behind by Bueller, and not being officially part of the crew, her absence was not noticed or accounted for by the team of Operation Outreach. Once again, she was alone, and scared. Her thoughts raced. For one brief moment, I'd found love, one of Hicks's grunts, a Marine named Bueller. What is it about life that, as soon as you find something good, then it's taken away from you? I could feel the panic rising in my chest, choking, claustrophobic. My first instinct was to hide, just like Acheron, just like Earth. That's what the enemy depends on. Human, alien, they rely on that fear to endure. It explained the resilience of creatures like the alien. They don't understand fear. They don't understand anything beyond their existence. I knew I would have to become like them to survive. It had been 4 hours since we'd been boarded. Who the hell were they? Soldiers? Mercenaries? It didn't matter. It wouldn't have mattered to them. From her hiding place, she could see Hicks being held at gunpoint, and that Stevens had been executed. Massey's logic was that if a man like Stevens would sell out his own crew, how much could he really trust him? But there still was Hicks, yet again finding himself in command of a mission after everyone who outranked him was dead. He tried to get information from Massey, anything he could use. I still can't figure out where the corporation found the balls to intercept a government ship on a classified mission. I think you'll find the corporation capable of almost anything. We still believe in free enterprise, capitalism. Your government wants the alien life form for itself. My government? You make it sound like the corporation is an independent state. Jesus, those things destroyed Acheron. Think what they could do on Earth. I have. We're breeding them. You'll stay with me aboard the Benedict. Your men seem to respect you. I might be able to use that. You've already got those things on Earth. Why not just kill us and be done with it? Oh, you're going to die. Rest assured of that. But I'm sure you understand the call of science. We're charged with investigating the homeworld before returning to Earth. Never know what you might find. If their homeworld follows traditional patterns, there's probably some sort of ecological balance. Predator, prey, like Earth, like you and me. The alien is a remarkable life form, but it may not be the dominant species on its homeworld. A corporation like Bionational succeeds by staying one step in front of the competition. In 5 years, the alien will be obsolete, passé. We'll need to find newer, superior biological weapons. We're fishing. Your Marines are bait. Hicks's crew approached the Xenomorph Homeworld. They were the bait, and were soon to see if Massey's theory of ecological balance held true. Surviving the mission was more of an uncertainty than ever before. Whatever inhabited this world was a mystery, though back on Earth, at Bionational's lab, there had been interesting developments. Traitor remained invested in their studies. He even kept a close eye on Rain, who was under constant surveillance in his new environment. Hello again, it's Ostro, just checking in. The others have forgotten your sacrifice, but I remember. I'll always remember. We captured it while it fed on you. It seemed to need that primitive animal kinship. While it acclimated to the artificial environment, you were its home. You gave it your body, your life. At least you didn't die in vain. You would have been thrilled with our progress. Originally, of course, we'd planned to study the specimen while awaiting the return of the KO-14. For once, we'd had a bit of luck. You see, the creature we captured was a queen, and that changed things. In this series, I'm recounting the Earth War, as depicted in the Aliens comic series, and the events leading up to it, as well as its aftermath. The accounts are explored as originally published, despite certain names, locations, and other events having been altered over time. If you missed it, the previous video in this series is Bionational Executive Assistant Patrick Massey, a profile, and stay tuned for the next video about the Alien Homeworld. As always, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to give it a like, and you can also subscribe for all the latest videos from the channel. A very, very special thanks goes out to WEYLAND YUTANI Executive, EmYarUk, part of the Patreon Hive. Thank you for your support. If you'd like to join the Hive and support the channel, check out my Patreon page for exclusive posts and contests. In the meantime, you can catch up with Alien Theory over social media. Follow @alien_theory on Twitter and @alientheoryyt on Facebook and Instagram for more. And until next time, this is Alien Theory, signing off.